On the eve of Sunday, January 18, 1970, freshman co-eds Malarik and Karen Ferrell attended the 7 p.m. showing of the movie Oliver, which was playing at the Metropolitan Theater in downtown Morgantown, West Virginia. While at the movie, they ran into a fellow dorm mate, Darren Byrne, and her companion, Clarence Lewis, better known as Skip. When the movie concluded, the group exited the theater, walking several blocks before parting ways. Darren and Skip were taking the bus back to campus, while Malarik and Karen planned on hitchhiking back to their dorm, Westchester Hall. Darren and Skip remember seeing the girls get into a beige-colored vehicle, which was being driven by a Caucasian male with dark hair. The couple found it odd that when the vehicle passed, neither Malarik nor Karen made any attempt to acknowledge them as they drove past. This would be the last time Malarik and Karen were seen alive. Despite numerous protests from friends and family members, Malarik and Karen were initially deemed runaways who left Morgantown of their own free will. This notion was reinforced when reports trickled in, claiming that a truck driver gave the girls a ride. According to his account, he dropped them off in Charleston, where they planned on hitching until they arrived in Ashland, Kentucky. The search was promptly scaled down following these reports. On March 1, 1970, a young boy discovered the waterlogged purse of Malarik while out collecting pop bottles. Neither the press nor the family would learn of this discovery for another month when the West Virginia State Police took over the search efforts for the missing co-eds from the Morgantown Police. The following month, a series of letters postmarked from Cumberland, Maryland arrived, seemingly taunting police as to the location of the girls' remains. Over the next month, various items belonging to the girls would show up within a quarter-mile radius of where the girls would ultimately be discovered. On April 16, 1970, 88 days after their disappearance, members of the National Guard stumbled upon the makeshift tomb which concealed the remains of the two co-eds. Both bodies were found neatly clothed, and there was no sign of sexual assault. There was even a pack of cigarettes, with 2 cigarettes still in the pack, neatly tucked into the waistband of Malaik's pants. The bodies were stacked one on top of the other, with Karen on top and Malarik beneath. The clothing found on the bodies matched what the young girls had been wearing at the time of their disappearance. But perhaps in juxtaposition to the way the trunks of the remains were found, the co-eds were missing one vital piece of their body: their heads. As word of the discovery spread, the pressure for a killer to be located began to heat up. The investigation was given new life and thrust into the spotlight of the media. The bodies were taken to the West Virginia University Hospital to undergo autopsy. From this analysis, police were able to ascertain the following about the girls. About 60% of Karen Ferrell's remains were gone, presumably consumed by animals. Malarik was noted to have been in a much better form of preservation. The head of Malarik was completely severed, whereas there was more neck which remained on Karen's body. It has been theorized that a hatchet was used to sever the heads, but it is not for certain how the girls ultimately met their fate. There were nicks in the sweater Karen had been wearing, with ragged ends, which further supports this theory. Sadly, the search for the assailant of the missing co-eds went cold. 6 years went by before new life was brought back to the case by means of a confession of guilt from a New Jersey prisoner by the name of Eugene Paul Clausen. After suffering traumatic nightmares where he claimed to have been haunted by the headless co-eds, Eugene Paul Clausen confessed to a cellmate, then to a prison guard, and finally to the West Virginia State Police. According to Clausen's account, he visited his mother in Point Marion, Pennsylvania, borrowed a car, and drove 9 miles to Morgantown, where he picked up Malarik and Karen. He claimed to have been under the influence of LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide, and marijuana. He took the girls to a secluded wooded area outside of Morgantown, where he forced them to participate in sex acts. He shot one girl in the head, returned to the car where he grabbed a machete, and proceeded to cut the head off the one girl. He later decapitated the other girl and dragged the bodies further into the woods where he covered them with logs and rocks. He threw the heads into the back seat of his vehicle and proceeded back to Point Marion, stopping along the way to have sex with the heads. He disposed of the heads and gun in a crevice, cleaned and returned the machete to his brother's house. Clausen's trial was set for October 1976 in West Virginia. However, to everybody's surprise, Clausen entered a plea of not guilty and recanted his previous confessions. When he ultimately went to trial, Clausen was found guilty and was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. Clausen appealed the ruling and was ultimately given another trial, which was scheduled for October 26, 1981. The second trial took place in nearby Randolph County as a means to limit any bias locals of Monongalia County may have toward the case. Clausen was again found guilty, but this time his sentence was reset as life imprisonment with the recommendation of parole. Clausen still to this day maintains his innocence. 42 years after Las Vegas teenager Kim Bryant was sexually assaulted and murdered, police say that DNA evidence has identified her killer. Kim Bryant, 16, disappeared after failing to meet her boyfriend at a Dairy Queen, and her body was found in a desert area 3 weeks later. Now investigators believe that Johnny Peterson, who was 19 at the time and died in 1993, is her murderer. DNA from her body was recently tested by a Texas lab, and it led to a relative who agreed to give a sample that showed a match, officials said. He was never on the radar as a suspect, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department Homicide Lieutenant Ray Spencer said at a news conference. Kim was reported missing on January 26, 1979, after she never returned home from Western High School, police said. Her boyfriend said he was supposed to pick her up at a Dairy Queen that morning, but when he got there, she was not there. Her body was found in a desert area on February 20th of that year, and sperm was recovered during autopsy, Spencer said. But the case was eventually classified as a cold case. In 2008, it was tested, but no profile was found, Kim Murga, director of laboratory services for the police department, said. It was tested again in January, and a foreign male profile was found, but it didn't generate any hits in a DNA index. A donation by a local philanthropist, Justin Wu, led to advanced genetic testing through a Texas lab, officials said. That led to a relative who agreed to be tested and proved a family tie. Michael Vogan, director of case management at the lab company Othram, said that it developed a large profile and narrowed it down. We upload that into various databases, and we find distantly related people to that DNA, and we slowly include or exclude them as being closely related, he said. We work that family tree. Edward Elliott, Kim's father, in a statement read by police, thanked investigators and Wu. Kim was a beautiful girl with a bright future, and it makes me happy that something is being done to help solve cases such as hers, he said in the statement. Peterson lived in Las Vegas at the time and at one point attended Western High School, but he was not a student there when Kim was killed, Spencer said. He was arrested in a different sexual assault in 1980, but that case was dismissed. Jennifer Pan spent years forging report cards and college transcripts to please her strict parents, Hui Han Pan and Bic Ha Pan. But when they found out, she and her boyfriend Daniel Wong decided to have them killed. Jennifer Pan was a disciplined and resilient teenager. A straight-A student at Mary Ward Catholic Secondary School in Markham, Ontario, she was raised by Vietnamese refugees who ran a strict household. Pan did as she was told in every waking hour, earning admission and a scholarship to Ryerson University in Toronto. Her father and mother, Wei Han and Bic Ha Pan, regulated her everyday life, focusing on success. She was forbidden to attend school dances or parties and was forced to learn piano, figure skating, and martial arts. The rules paid off with Pan transferring to the University of Toronto and graduating to a respectable job. In reality, those feats had been elaborate lies. Pan never graduated from college, let alone high school. She forged report cards and university transcripts for nearly a decade until her parents found out. She even had a secret boyfriend for 7 years named Daniel Wong. And together, Daniel Wong and Jennifer Pan orchestrated a hit to have her parents murdered, only to fail and be exposed by the police. Jennifer Pan was born on June 17, 1986, in Markham, Ontario. Her parents, Bic Ha Pan and Hui Han Pan, had fled Vietnam in 1979 and worked hard to provide their children with opportunities they never had. Both Jennifer Pan's father and mother worked at auto parts manufacturer Magna International. They eventually purchased a large home, a Lexus and a Mercedes, and accumulated $200,000 in savings. Disciplining their daughter, they enrolled her in piano lessons at age 4 and figure skating in elementary school. In high school, she appeared to thrive both academically and socially. However, when she tore a ligament in her knee, any hopes of being a professional skater were dashed. In 8th grade, Pan began self-harming by cutting. In 11th grade, she found solace in dating senior Daniel Wong until he was forced to transfer to a new school after police found marijuana in his car. Pan's grades began to slide from A's to B's, but she was accepted early into Ryerson University until she failed calculus her senior year, and the college withdrew their offer. Pan started forging her report cards and claimed to be starting Ryerson in fall 2004. She told her father she would transfer to the University of Toronto after 2 years at Ryerson, and even claimed to have gotten a $3,000 scholarship. Hui Han Pan proudly bought her a laptop. In the fall, Pan commuted to cafes or to Wong's dorm pretending to go to class. She even claimed to have successfully transferred to the University of Toronto in 2006, right on schedule. When her 2008 graduation ceremony loomed, Pan claimed the university only gave out 1 ticket per student, and that she had given hers to a friend so as not to exclude one of her parents. A supposedly newfound graduate, Jennifer Pan purported to be volunteering at a children's hospital in Toronto. Jennifer Pan's father and mother grew suspicious at the lack of uniform or ID badge entailed her to work. Finally exposed, she had her phone and laptop confiscated and was forbidden from dating Wong. She regained their trust over the next 2 years and had her phone privileges restored. At 24 years old, she had never been drunk or gone out dancing. But Daniel Wong and Jennifer Pan reconnected, and Wong even provided her with a spare phone, which she used to ask him to help stage a robbery to kill her parents. Wong introduced her to an underworld friend named Lenford Crawford. Over a series of texts, Pan agreed to pay him $10,000 out of her eventual inheritance. Crawford prepared by scoping out her neighborhood on Halloween 2010. On November 8th, Crawford texted her, "After work, okay, will be game time." With Hui Han in bed and Bik Ha reading downstairs, Jennifer said goodnight to her mother and unlocked the front door. At 10:02 p.m., she turned on the lights in the upstairs study. 3 minutes later, Crawford and 2 others, David Milvaganam and Eric Carty, entered the home. Carty tied Pan's hands behind her back and to the upstairs banister with a shoelace. The others dragged her parents into the basement and covered their heads in blankets. Bik Ha Pan was shot 3 times in the head, while her husband was shot in the face and shoulder. As the gunman fled, Jennifer Pan called 911. That's when her father appeared from the basement, having miraculously survived. Although police believed Pan during questioning that night, they were suspicious about how she could reach her phone while bound. Their skepticism grew during a second interview on November 10th when they asked her to simulate how she did so. Waking from his coma on November 12th, Jennifer Pan's father told police he saw his daughter whispering to one of the gunmen, "Like a friend." When Detective William Gutz questioned Pan again on November 22, 2010, the jig was up. He told her he knew everything, and Pan cracked. "But what happens to me?" Pan tearfully asked. Daniel Wong and Jennifer Pan were arrested, Jennifer that same night. Wong and the hitmen followed in spring 2011. On December 13, 2014, Pan, Wong, Carty, Crawford, and Milvaganam were found guilty of first-degree murder and attempted murder. They received life sentences with no chance of parole and additional life sentences to be served concurrently. Carty was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder in 2015 and received an 18-year sentence. A banker burnt his wife alive after she discovered he was having an affair, then claimed she died whilst making him a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. Darren Byrne was found guilty of murdering his spouse Maria, 35, in the kitchen of their £450,000 home in Essex, London. Judge Charles Gratwick told the murderer, "You have been convicted of what can only be described as a wicked and heinous crime. I say nothing further at this stage save that you can expect an exceedingly long sentence." Byrne, 40, frantically trying to cover his tracks after knocking out his wife, 35, by dousing her in white spirit and setting her ablaze. He even called 999, and a recording played to the court showed him pretending to have found his wife dead after a horrific accident. Mrs. Byrne was killed when she found a text between her husband and his London osteopath revealing an illicit relationship. A jury heard how furious Maria confronted her husband as he had promised he would stop seeing married Deborah Houlihan. Ms. Houlihan had told the court she carried on seeing Byrne, despite both of their partners believing the affair was over. She said, "Deep down in my heart, I knew it was wrong, but we made each other feel good, and I felt excited by the spark we had between us. Byrne had told his wife, who was also the mother of his 2 children, that the affair was over on February 13, 2016, but she discovered a text on a secret phone he used to speak to his mistress, and a furious argument ensued. Byrne knocked Maria out and, as she lay on the floor, he poured white spirit on her and set her alight. He then turned on the gas stove in a bid to set fire to his house. After this failed, he moved his wife's body to make it look like a tragic cooking accident. He then called the emergency services saying, "My wife is dead, she is dead, she's burnt badly."
Ambulance emergency, tell me exactly what's happened.
My wife's dead.
She's what?
She's dead.
Okay, what's the address of the emergency? Just bear with me a moment to try and map your location.
Thank you.
And just repeat your address for me so I know I have it correct. Okay, how old is she?
34.
Okay. Is she awake?
No.
Is she breathing?
She's burnt badly.
She's burnt?
Yes.
How did she get burnt?
The stove was on and the frying pan's on the other side of the room.
Okay, is she breathing?
Her tongue's out of her mouth.
Can you see her chest rising and falling?
Oh,
Is she breathing?
she's not breathing.
Okay.
And she's hard.
Byrne told police he'd been out walking the dog whilst his wife made him a BLT sandwich, but returned home to find her lying on the floor. The court heard how the couple met in the city when they both worked at banks and fell in love before having 2 children who mercifully were not present when their mother was killed. Jurors heard they were a happy family unit until she discovered her husband's infidelity and their relationship deteriorated. Mrs. Byrne had agreed to give it another go and took Byrne back when he promised he would change. The couple had planned to go to America to celebrate his 40th birthday. Mr. Jackson said she was extremely hurt and upset by what she had discovered, and we heard her immediate reaction was for the defendant to leave their home. Mrs. Byrne did all that she could do to save and revive their marriage. They had 2 children, and the defendant was told by her that he could come back to the family home. Byrne decided to carry on seeing Mrs. Houlihan and bought a second phone, determined his wife would not catch him out. Mr. Jackson added, he was determined his wife wouldn't catch him out, and he bought an unregistered pay-as-you-go mobile phone. The purpose of that was simple. It was to contact Mrs. Houlihan. Byrne was found guilty of murder by a majority verdict of 11-1 and arson unanimously. Speaking after the verdict, Mrs. Bryant's devastated mother, Linda Biggs, said, "I hope he is sentenced to life, whole life, and after death that he rots in eternal damnation." She added, "What Darren Byrne has done is beyond any human comprehension. Justice has been served today for our beautiful, loving, loyal, kind, gentle, and loving daughter. She was everything to us, our whole world." Our world ended on February 13, 2016, when we were told by the police that she was dead. 8 years ago, we entrusted her, the most precious thing we had, to Darren Byrne. We loved him and treated him like our own son. This person, instead of loving and protecting her, took her life in the most degrading way. Until Darren gave evidence in this trial, we as a family had no idea what had happened that day because he had never told anyone. Having to sit in court and hear what Darren said he had done to Maria was beyond words. The utter devastation this has caused our family is indescribable, and we feel immense pain. None more so than Maria's 2 sons. They will have to grow up without a mother or a father and are now in effect orphans by Darren's actions. Darren did not think of the boys at all when he took Maria's life. Almost a decade after beloved Red Bank middle school teacher Jonelle Melton was found brutally slain in her ransacked Neptune City apartment, a jury in 2019 found 3 career criminals guilty of all charges related to her mistaken identity murder. Jonelle had a passion for history and knew how to get her students into it. Her enthusiasm for history was passed down to her students. Jonelle had even attended Barack Obama's inauguration in January 2009. A photo of her was taken in the crowd, which she shared with her students and colleagues. Jonelle met her future husband, Michael Melton, after college. He said he used to flirt with her a bit. They started dating and got married in Jamaica in August 2003. They both became teachers at Red Bank Middle School. The marriage was good for about 3 years. Michael said he wasn't used to so much affection or having someone love him so much. He had started a basketball company and was gone a lot. Michael eventually filed for divorce. Jonelle eventually became comfortable having her own space. They were still cordial and spoke on the phone every day. On September 14, 2009, Jonelle still hadn't shown up for school by 8 a.m. It was an important day as she had a guest speaker lined up for her students. The school secretary asked Michael to go check on her at her apartment, which was 20 minutes away in Neptune City in New Jersey. Michael pulled up to the house and saw Jonelle's car in the driveway. Michael tried the door, and it was open. He entered the house and called out her name. He walked into her bedroom and saw her on the floor. Jonelle had her nightgown on, and Michael saw what looked like blood on it. Jonelle looked like she had fallen while she was putting on her makeup. He called 911. Michael said he remembered asking Jonelle what she had done. He thought maybe she couldn't handle the separation and had harmed herself. The paramedics arrived to Jonelle's house around 9:20 a.m. Jonelle was pronounced dead at the scene. Michael called the school to notify their co-workers. Jonelle lived on the first floor at Brighton Arms Apartments. The police believed that they were looking for 2 killers due to the brutality of the crime. The kitchen window was the point of entry. There was a footprint impression on the chair below the window inside the apartment. A pink lighter was also found near the chair. The kitchen had been ransacked. The cabinets were open, and it appeared as if someone had been searching through cereal boxes. It's believed that Jonelle had been killed during the night of September 13th in her bedroom. Jonelle had been beaten and tortured over a period of time, probably to get information from her as to what the killers were searching for. She had also been shot in the head. There was a frayed piece of duct tape, which probably was used as some kind of binding. The duct tape had blood on it, and there were latex gloves found near Jonelle's body. The evidence was collected. Michael was interviewed by the police as he had found her body. Michael said the police first were trying to collect any information about his relationship with Jonelle. Michael admitted that they were sometimes still having relations. He said he felt like the questions were very evasive, but the police needed as much information as they could. Michael said he was visiting a friend on the night of Jonelle's murder. Michael consented to a DNA swab. Michael's alibi was looked into. The police spoke to Michael's friend. His phone records didn't put him anywhere near Jonelle's apartment on the night of the murder. 2 days after Jonelle's murder, a newspaper article came out. In the article, it said Michael was her estranged husband and Jonelle was found slain in her home. The article also mentioned that the divorce was to be finalized on October 6th. Michael realized that people thought he killed her. Michael said everyone turned on him. Jonelle's family and their colleagues believed he had killed her. Michael's friend was an attorney and agreed to defend him pro bono. Michael was told not to speak to anyone. When he returned back to work, he had a memo on his desk saying he couldn't teach or have any contact with students. Michael met with the school officials with his attorney. It was recommended that he take a desk job while the investigation was going on. On November 10, 2009, 2 months after the murder, the DNA came back from the duct tape. The DNA had Michael's DNA on it. Jonelle's DNA was also found on it from the blood that was left behind. The police believed that Jonelle had been duct taped to a chair before the attack. Michael said the tape had been stuck to his shoe when he found Jonelle, so he used his hand to pull it off. There was also DNA found on the lighter, but it came back as inconclusive. The evidence was transferred to the New York City Medical Examiner's Office for additional analysis. The police were also receiving tips. One neighbor believed he had heard a loud noise. One woman said her dogs were awoken by the noise. A tall black male was spotted near the apartment. No one had called the police. Many people close to Jonelle were angry that these neighbors had been sitting on this information for months. Michael said he turned to alcohol and even contemplated taking his life. On December 3, 2012, 3 years and 3 months after the murder, the police learned that they had a DNA match from the lighter. It came back as belonging to Gregory Jean Baptiste, a Bloods gang member. He was questioned by the police. He said he had never seen Jonelle before and had never been at the apartment. The police went in circles with Baptiste as he wouldn't confess to anything. After 27 minutes, he refused to talk anymore. Jonelle's case went cold, but the case was reassigned to two new detectives. Michael reached out to a friend to help clear his name. The friend went out to talk to people in the area. The killer's name wasn't revealed, but there was crucial information given. Michael told the police about what he had heard. Apparently, gang members were looking for a drug dealer named David James, aka Munch. David lived directly next to Jonelle. It was rumored that David had $15,000 in a freezer. He also had drugs in his apartment. His girlfriend was overheard by these people talking about the drugs at a party. They ended up at the wrong apartment and assumed Jonelle was the girlfriend of David. The police were out searching for anyone who would talk. Finally, an informant gave them three names. A fourth person, a woman, was their getaway driver. The men were identified as Ebenezer Byrne, Gregory Jean Baptiste, and Jerry Spaulding. All three were part of the Bloods gang. The woman was later identified as Elizabeth Pinto, a former girlfriend of Ebenezer Byrne. On December 1, 2015, a woman named Narika Scott identified Elizabeth Pinto as the getaway driver. Narika had been Ebenezer Byrne's current girlfriend. She went to the police after hearing his confession during one of their prison visits. It was clear to the police that she had been very afraid to come forward. Elizabeth was interviewed. She was also afraid to talk. She finally said Jonelle deserved justice and admitted that she was the getaway driver. She said all three men dressed in black and told her where to drive. Elizabeth was shown photos of all three men, and she was able to identify them by name. She said she didn't know where she was driving to. She agreed to show where she had dropped them off. She pled guilty to conspiracy and agreed to testify against all three men. Elizabeth was also able to tell the police that all three men had put on latex gloves. Pinto dropped them off nearby and watched them walk across the street towards the apartment. On March 23, 2016, all three men were charged with first-degree felony murder, second-degree robbery, conspiracy, and unlawful weapons charges. They all maintained their innocence. A fourth defendant in the case, James Flair, in November 2017 pleaded guilty to his role in Melton's murder. He is currently serving an 82-year prison term for the 78 crimes he was convicted of committing in the summer of 2017. For nearly 4 decades, the Gravel family of North Andover has waited for answers about what happened to their sister, their daughter, their loved one Claire before her body was found, strangled in the woods off Route 128 in Beverly. On Friday, October 21, 2022, a little past noon, they learned just a little more about her brutal death, as a prosecutor confirmed for the first time that the DNA of John Carey, collected more than a decade ago after his conviction in another strangulation, was found on Gravel's pink tank top. That tank top, prosecutor Kim Fatella told a judge, was found wrapped around the young Salem State student in a figure 8. Claire Gravel was just 20 and was last seen alive on June 28, 1986, after visiting Major Maglish's pub on Washington Street with her softball team and then being dropped off at her Loring Avenue apartment. Her body was found 2 days later on June 30th. The confirmation, which in August led to a grand jury indictment against Carey, 63, formerly of Gloucester, couldn't have come soon enough, as Carey had been expected to be released on parole from state prison for the 2007 Hamilton strangulation as early as January. Now his attorney conceded Friday at Carey's arraignment on charges related to Gravel's murder. That parole in that case is unlikely, and Carey will face life without parole if convicted in Gravel's death. Today is the first day on the road to justice. The day we didn't think was coming but is finally here, and now we're just waiting for the court process to take its course. Bob Gravel Jr. told reporters outside court. He was accompanied by 86-year-old Bob Gravel Sr., his and Claire's father, along with brothers Mark and James. Claire, he said, is always on my mind. When I leave here, on my way home, I'm going to the cemetery to go talk to her and tell her what happened. Carey, who appeared via video from Massachusetts Correctional Institution, Sousa Baranowski and Shirley, bellowed the words, "not guilty," when asked for his answer to the charges. Earlier in the hearing, his lawyer, John Aprusisi, unsuccessfully attempted to hide his client from view, asking in a motion that the video monitor be shut off. Aprusisi told Judge Salim Tibet that he's concerned about tainting the potential jury pool and fretted about other witnesses potentially coming forward in future identifications. Judge Salim dismissed both concerns. The judge said he anticipates that the case, which drew reporters from 3 Boston television stations and a newspaper reporter and photographer, will continue to receive extensive publicity regardless of whether Carey is hidden from view. I suspect it will garner much attention whether his face is shown or not, said Judge Salim. The judge also suggested that it's unlikely for anyone to recognize Carey as the same man they might have seen 36 years ago. Time stands still for no one, Judge Salim told the lawyer. Faitella also pointed out that photos of Carey, taken by a Salem News photographer during his 2008 trial in the Hamilton strangulation case, have appeared in local newspapers again since the indictment. Judge Salim granted the prosecutor's request to hold Carey without bail, which is standard in all first-degree murder cases. Claire Gravel's family, her father, and siblings said in a statement to the media that they are relieved and very, very grateful that a suspect has been identified after so many years. Thanks for watching. If you like my content, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel.